Ooh-wee.
Here we go.
Mine started to fizz everywhere. I had to drink it really quickly.
Hop Diggity. Damn, that's alcoholic.
From Mother Earth Brew Co. comes Hop Diggity Double India Pale Ale. Yeah, that it's a 8.2% by volume. Holy hell.
That's how you know it's good.
Damn, Cleet.
Yeah.
You're on an agenda. You just need to get everyone drunk.
In Ireland, this is just considered a regular beer.
Yeah, I think in most places other than the United States. Especially Utah. Like in Utah, this is like the holy grail. You just anywhere it sells up to 5%. But you have to go to a special liquor store to get anything above 5.
Yeah. Well, guys, we have a special episode for you tonight. I'm going to give you a little bit of a sample of what we're going to be talking about.
Mel Waters has appeared on Coast to Coast AM several times over the years now. Many may remember his accounts of the mysterious hole on his property in central Washington, which appeared to have no bottom. The hole was, by Mel's account, measured to a depth of 80,000 feet, utilizing fishing line and a weight. Since Mel's first appearance on the show, many strange, fascinating, and rather unfortunate things have happened to Mel and the people somehow related to the hole.
So back to Mel's Hole we go.
Yeah, I'm excited. We're going to do a deep dive back into Mel's hole. It's going to be his fourth call. Spoiler alert. Apparently, Mel has 2 bottomless holes.
Oh my God.
We're going to go deep in both of his holes.
There's a word for that. Or a couple words. You wanted to say it so bad. You were so close I could hear you were gearing up to say it, weren't you? This is a family show. But Cleet, so this is our 4th dive into Mel's hole. So just give us like a Cliff Notes version to get us to where we're at, because like obviously this we've kind of repeatedly covered a couple of the same things. So how do we get to where we're at now?
Well, so if we remember in the last call, he ended up at a seedy place in San Francisco, missing like some of his teeth.
Mm-hmm.
And he just disappeared for like a couple of years. And he calls back and he kind of reminds the audience about what's going on and some crazy shit he's gotten himself into lately.
And if we have time, because I know you have a lot of stuff, I actually wanted to find something remotely similar, but I just went to the internet to find some of the craziest shit that people have found in their backyards.
Yeah. Oh God.
Nothing like a bottomless pit. I mean, Mel's hole takes the cake. I don't think anyone's gonna find anything
that was technically in his backyard. Yeah.
And that's why I chose this one. So, but before we do start though, you know the movie that just came out called Nope, right?
No.
It's oh man. I'm gonna say I think you'd enjoy it. You know Jordan Peele.
Yeah.
Key and Peele.
Yeah, that guy's hilarious.
Yeah. So he this is his 3rd horror movie he's written. It started with Get Out and then Us and now Nope. It's good, man. It's wild.
I'll have to check it out.
We went and saw it with my family. Like, he does these things where it's like they're super original. Like this 3rd movie, it's not really spoilers, but it's about aliens. It's wild, man.
Interesting.
You need to check it out.
You know, I was perusing the Facebook, and I was watching a video, and it was about this girl on the news, and she was, like, really sad. She's like, when I broke up with my boyfriend, he put some type of ad out saying he'd pay someone $100 to call this phone and leave a voicemail with their best Chewbacca voice.
Oh, man.
And you could just hear, like, them going through the voicemails of, like, people doing Chewbacca. And then there was, like, one guy who didn't even try. It was like, ah! He
just called and, like, belligerently screamed.
It was so funny. I read the comments, and they were like, he won that breakup.
Oh, God, yeah.
All right.
That must have been a nasty breakup if you're trying to go to that length.
The funniest thing I've ever heard.
You'd have to change your number. Like, you could never answer the phone again.
Oh, yeah. I'd probably change my number.
You wake up, you have 700 new emails, and
Just
all Chewbacca and screams. That does not make for a good morning. That's terrible. But it's hilarious, though. Like, I'm not upset. I think that's hilarious.
All right.
Let's dive into the abyss known as Mel's Hole for the 4th time.
This is the 4th phone call to Coast to Coast.
How many more do we have after that?
Only one more, and then we'll get into
snap.
the theories of what's going on here. So this 4th call took place on January 29th, 2002. So another couple of years would go by before listeners to Art Bell's radio show would hear from Mel Waters again. Art would go over the initial backstory of Mel's hole before welcoming Mel to the show. He states that he is in the Pacific Northwest and that he is coming back from Nevada the previous week during the rebroadcasting of the original shows. Mel mentions that a lot of truckers think he's Willie Nelson, but they know exactly who he is after he mentions that he's Mel Waters. They both once again go over the backstory of the hole from the previous shows, including dumping dead animals, TV tubes, and the fact that they don't hear any sound when they drop in items. So remember, like, they were throwing cows down there, like dead cows, dead dogs,
The guy
anything.
brought a trailer full of tires.
So Art asked Mel to swear on the Bible that he is completely telling the truth, to which Mel says, "It's absolutely the truth." And they continue with the story, bringing up the Mexican fellow who used to toss thousands of tires down the hole like you were saying.
Yep.
From everything Mel could see, the hole did not taper off in any direction, and the amount of refuse would have piled up by this point if it had a bottom. Mel had covered the hole with a lock metal cover in order to keep people from getting hurt around it. Mel talked about lowering fishing line and lifesavers candy down the hole in order to find water. He talks about buying large quantities of fishing line to lower down the hole. He did this alone. He ended stopping at 80,000 feet of line into the hole that he recorded with a widget using the measuring line. So again, this is covered extensively in previous episodes. We're just kind of briefly going through it. Mel isn't sure what to think about all of these things that have happened to him, including the hole.
You know what he should do?
What?
Like, get 2 cell phones, put one of them on FaceTime, and just fucking drop it down there.
Well, it's
See how long it
2002,
goes.
but,
Oh, man.
you know, we could do that. I mean,
Just do it
I
on speakerphone. It doesn't have to be FaceTime. But just,
assume the signals wouldn't really penetrate the earth that far, though.
oh, they
you know?
wouldn't penetrate.
He mentioned current mining projects of incredibly deep holes in Russia, and Art says that some people think it could be volcanic vents. The hole exhibited paranormal aspects, including that Mel's dog wouldn't go anywhere near it. Birds wouldn't mess with the retaining wall at all, and a hunter claimed his dead dog came back to life after being tossed down into the hole. So according to the hunter, the dog looked like it was hunting with someone else. So I just have to play this line because it's like one of my favorite lines from the show.
Various things that, you know, when I talked to him about it, one man claimed he had thrown a dog that died into it, and at some point after that, he was out there hunting around up there in the hills, and he saw the exact same dog just going through the woods like it was hunting with somebody.
So the hole then brought the dog back to life.
Well,
is the idea.
Now here's the thing here. I said, well, did you call the dog back to you?
Mm-hmm.
And you know, did it come back to you? He said it looked like it was hunting with somebody else.
Isn't that like the ultimate rejection? Like you resurrect your dog like Pet Cemetery style, and he doesn't come back evil, he just comes back indifferent. He's like, you know what? I like the neighbors. I'm gonna go hunting with them.
You know, you were actually kind of a shitty pet parent. This guy was cool, though. I mean, he did just throw his corpse down into a never-ending hole. So, I mean, if the dog came back, he's like, are you serious?
That's
Do you know how long I had to fall?
I mean, yeah, it is kind of a shitty way to get rid of a pet, but
Like, if my owner threw me down a hole, I'd be like, well, fuck you, bud. I'm going to go find someone else.
I guess you have a good point, Brendan. That makes sense. So, Mel was living in an apartment in town due to snowstorms damaging the buildings on his property. After the original phone call, Mel was stopped by military personnel on the access road to his property. They told him that there was a plane crash, but Mel noticed no smoke or anything. He was threatened with the possibility of finding a drug lab, and he had a lab for his herbal medicine that he was working on in there. None of it was illegal, but it was not native to the area. He says that he had worked with Native Americans, and they could point out much of the same things all over the desert. An offer was made to lease his property for $250,000 a month, or $3 million a year, and he was relocated to Australia as part of the deal. So essentially the government just buys him off, right? Doesn't explain what the hole is, just says, here's a boatload of money, GTFO.
I mean, I would still do it. I mean, that's life-changing money, especially in 2002.
This was 1997.
1997 even.
Yeah.
So
no,
of
you're
course.
right. It's like almost probably 600,000 now.
said-
Art confirms that Mel was in Australia, and the two would stay in touch. He was allowed to bring his plants and dogs with him, which would normally be an issue, but he was able to avoid those problems because he's working with like the echelons of the government.
He has no rules.
His money also came on time every month. One of the things he worked on was wombat rescue and rehabilitation. So he's like spending it on good deeds, you know?
Was this money taxed? Were they like, here's $250,000, but you're going to give a lot of that back?
I'm pretty sure like he had a table and someone just came and put the money under the table. Just
Probably.
kidding.
Just like randomly every day on his porch or every month, he just walks out and there's a big bag of cash.
Or it's like direct deposited and it says like Strip Club Incorporated.
It's just, shh, we don't speak of this.
So from March of 1997 to late 1999, Mel was in Australia. At this point, the show takes a break. Most of the money that Mel received was spent on the Wombat Research and Rescue Center, as it was a passion of his and he had the opportunity to make a difference. In December of 1999, Mel had returned back to the United States to visit family and his nephew and help his nephew move. He made plans to call into Art's show and give him an update on things. After returning to the moving truck back to Tacoma, Mel got on the bus and headed back down to Olympia, where his nephew was living now. On that bus ride, there was an altercation, and he was asked to give a statement by transit police. He refused to give a statement as he was worried he would miss the last bus to Olympia. The transit police offered to give him a ride in the van, which Mel agreed to. That was the last thing he remembered, because 12 days later he woke up in an alley, badly beaten and confused. He was missing his back teeth as well. Art had helped out Mel with getting him a good dentist, and he was fitted with state-of-the-art dentures. There was physical evidence that he had been hooked to an IV, as he had tape marks on his arms.
Jesus.
Also missing was his personal custom-made belt buckle. So, when he had returned to his nephew's via another bus, he had discovered that legal action had been taken against him on his lease agreement with his ex-wife in regards to alterations made to the property. He no longer had any claim on the property, and that's where he was left. The money he had received up to this point had been devoted mostly to his research and to the Wombat Rescue Center. He was unable to access his money, and his entire facility in Australia was dismantled, and all of his staff was fired.
That's so frustrating.
And don't you hate it when that happens?
Hate it when I lose my Wombat research facility.
So that's essentially the summary of everything that's happened so far. And then it delves into some crazy shit. So before we get into that, though, Britton, would you like to talk about crazy shit found in backyards?
Hell yeah. I think it's amazing. I wanted to start, the first one is Cleet's backyard. Because he found this little weird concrete room.
Yeah.
That's so unexplainable. I still haven't seen it.
You've never seen it?
I want to see it.
I'd show you right after the show.
All right. Folks, if you don't hear from me ever again, please send the cops to Cleet's house. But, yeah, so there's a lot of really crazy things that people have found in their backyard. So the first one was a man in the Czech Republic took an afternoon to renovate his plumbing system out in his backyard, right? Just normal chores. Things were going pretty well. He's digging up all the dirt when suddenly he hit something solid, possibly metal. He continued to dig and was surprised to find that there were more than one of these mysterious objects buried. When you strike something hard that's like not a rock in your backyard, a little bit of you is probably just like, oh, what am I going to find?
It's goddamn skeletons.
So he worked tirelessly all day to uncover 2 huge church bells.
That's cool.
Isn't that really cool? His first question was how in the hell did they even get there? Because there wasn't any churches that had been on that plot of land before, like to his knowledge. So his first thought was like that they were stolen and buried by prior owners or whatever, which is actually what turned out to be the case, is they were stolen from a local church, but they had no clear motive. Right, like just church bells were stolen. So, it suggested that they were buried to keep them hidden, obviously, but no idea on whether they were to be sold later or if they were used for like personal reasons, or maybe he was just so sick and tired of them going off. He's like, fucking bells? So he stole them and buried them in his backyard.
What you need to do is, if you ever move, bury that 12-foot skeleton you have from Home Depot in your backyard, so if someone just finds it one day, like, years and years in the future, decades in the future.
That's a deep hole.
Yeah.
It's either deep or long.
Horizontal. I'd go horizontal. It's easier to be found.
Right? Yeah. So you'd still have to go a couple feet in the ground.
Yeah.
That'd be crazy.
It'd be like, oh my God, I discovered giants.
But it's still really, it's like, oh my God, I didn't have to find one from Home Depot. It was underground. This guy's a loser. Okay, so the next one takes place right here in Utah. A small boy decided that he wanted to dig up a nice spot for a pond in his backyard, because why not, right? Building a pond, that's fun.
You never do that in Utah. You're going to find something bad.
He spent roughly 2 weeks digging this pond when he came across what he thought to be an animal bone. It gave him a bit of a shock, of course, just this little kid in the backyard digging up bones, but he really became afraid when he dug up a human skull. I guess he continued to dig and would come across several more remnants, which led him to believe he had uncovered some form of graveyard in his backyard.
So multiple skeletons or just one?
Multiple different pieces of bone.
All right.
The bones were studied by researchers, and it was found that the bones belonged to a man who had passed over 10 centuries prior.
Damn.
These bones are old. So they're hoping to find the possible tribe and culture of the man to gain more of an understanding. But the biggest question that I think that we all have is, did the boy keep digging to finish his pond after this, or did he just stop? Like, would you just keep digging if you just found all these bones?
Maybe. Depends on how much work I put into it.
I would use the bones as like a border, like a decoration.
I'd grind them into little bits and put it on my food.
That's true. You like the bone flakes.
Mummy flakes.
Do you want some frosted flakes? What are these little frosted pieces? And it's bone.
It's definitely illegal.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't think it's illegal if you dug them up in your own backyard.
I feel like whenever you ingest humans, like somehow it has to be illegal. Like,
Yeah.
I'm sure it is. It has to be, right?
Some form of cannibal.
Yeah. Like, you can't just cut off your arm and be like, Cleet, eat this. And if I ate it, like, I'm pretty sure I'm breaking laws.
So you're not worried about me cutting off my arm. You're like, it's illegal for me to ingest this.
Yeah.
That's what you're worried
Yeah.
about. Okay.
The only thing stopping me, Britton, is the law.
Is the law. Okay. Okay. I'll never look at you the same way again. You're walking around like, God damn, I would eat that if it wasn't so illegal. That looks juicy. So this is the last one I'll cover, and then we'll go ahead and send it back to Cleet. Now, I'm not sure where this one took place, but there was this unemployed gentleman who was in his backyard just picking crops from his garden. He came across what I'm sure we'd all like to come across, a big bag full of cash. At first, he was dumbstruck, felt like his money issues were long gone, but his consciousness got the better of him, and he turned it over to the authorities.
Dude, whenever there's a big bag of cash, nothing good came about, like, accumulating that. So you might as well just go take it. Hide it in your basement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if I'd turn it over. I really don't.
Do you trust the police?
I mean, the thing
if you
is,
found $1 million cash in a briefcase
No,
with like
it's-
a handcuff and one like hand still like on it, like just chained to it,
oh my God.
like would you take that, police?
No. I mean, I might take the hand to the police and said, hey, I found this in my yard.
It was not handcuffed to a briefcase full of
There's
money.
handcuff marks here, sir. I don't know. I just found the fucking hand. Do you want it or not? I'll eat it if it's legal. If it's illegal for me to eat this, I'm gonna have it because I'm pretty hungry. My neighbor's really into zombie flakes. Zombie flakes, mummy flakes. Jesus.
Yeah.
So anyway, he turns it over to the police. Supposedly, they gave him a year-long waiting period for someone to claim the cash as their own. Otherwise, he would get to keep it. So they're like, hey, sure, give us a year. People show up, it's theirs. If not, hey, we'll hand it back to you. So if you're him, you're obviously hoping to all things holy that no one's showing up,
Yeah.
right? But like if it was me, and I wouldn't give it to the police, I'd just have it. And you just kind of filter it slowly into your life.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Unfortunately, the man's neighbor decided to claim the money for her own. She was elderly and told the story of her burying it to rid herself of the curse that it brought. So it's cursed cash.
My butt.
Her claims were pushed aside due to her struggling from dementia. Right? You gonna believe what she says? They probably should have paid attention, however, because the man sadly passed away shortly before he would have received the money. Just died. A few days later, his dad also passed away from a heart attack. So, there's obviously some that believe this to be part of the curse that the neighbor warned about. Others believe it to be just a mere circumstance.
So the guy who found the money died.
Died.
Oh.
Shortly before he would have received it. And his dad also died. I think it's because he turned it in. If he had kept it, he'd be fine.
He's probably stressed.
That's so much stress because that there's a huge briefcase or box of money with your name on it as long as 365 days pass with no one claiming it. That's stressful. You're like day 363, like, I fucking can't handle it.
Yeah, someone claimed your money.
I'd be so pissed. I'd be like, I need the name now. I'd be like, this is why.
It was one of the police officers.
He's the rookie. He said it was his.
All right, back to Mel's hole. So Mel talks about how ticked off he is to find out that they have taken his custom-made belt buckle. He happens to run into a guy who is wearing one of the belt buckles he would have made out of forks and coins, which makes him wonder why they would have taken his belt buckle back in San Francisco. It's like when he got beat up, they took his teeth and they took his belt buckle, right?
It was made out of forks and coins?
Yeah. I don't know if like he welded it together or how it worked, but he, Mel likes making his own weird shit.
He's like, it's just a partially used fork and an old quarter.
Yeah.
Leave me alone.
So the coins bore the likeness of Winston Churchill, Joseph Stalin, and a dime with Franklin Roosevelt to commemorate the Great Conference.
That's pretty cool.
The closer they looked at the dime, though, they realized that it was a 1943 Roosevelt dime. Roosevelt was still alive in 1943, so it was after Roosevelt died that they put him on the dime. So this dime shouldn't technically exist. So in the past, while digging around his property, Mel stumbled across a red envelope of Chinese lucky money, which contained 10 of the Roosevelt dimes, which he placed on every belt buckle he made, including the one that the man was wearing. The dimes also had B mint marks, which are not of any known minting city. The man took the dime to a coin dealer who was unable to explain it, but was willing to offer a large sum of money for it.
I don't know what you got here, but I will pay you for it.
Yeah, I mean, if you're like a rare coin dealer and someone walks in with a coin that shouldn't exist.
Yeah.
So the man decides to take a day or two to think about it. However, not long after that, officials from the Treasury Department show up and confiscate the coin.
Jesus.
So when it comes to coins, I believe like there's like letters on them, and the letters point to certain mintings around like America. And apparently B just doesn't exist. So again, it's like, was this like from an alternate reality? Like, what's going on here?
So he took it to this coin dealer. He's like, hey, I've got this thing. The guy's like, I have no idea. And then suspiciously, 2 days later, they're like, hey, we need that.
Yeah.
It's ours.
So the gentleman he met in San Francisco, they were like, yeah, let's look at it. And they noticed that B on there and like, well, that's weird. Let's look into it. Takes it to a coin dealer. He's like, this shouldn't exist. There's no minting facility that would put a B on a coin. So
he could have got money, but now he just got it confiscated.
See, that would be the worst.
Exactly. So he's thinking they're going, I should have fucking sold it.
Mel also brings up right after this that he's been unable to track down his ex-wife. It's as if she's completely vanished.
She went into the hole. She jumped right into Mel's hole.
Maybe, man. He just assumes that you are not able to get to the property now, but can't say for sure since he hasn't been anywhere near 5 miles to the hole. He speculates that there is a fence blocking the way, and that there are probably signs warning to keep people out. At this point, Mel asks Art if he's familiar with Terror Server, which is a website that specializes in an aerial and satellite imagery.
Terra server?
Yeah, it's like before Google Maps.
Oh, like terrain, like Terra. I thought you said terror server. I'm like, whoa.
No, Terra.
That sounds dark.
Oh, man.
Have you ever heard of the website Terror Server?
The service, which was launched in 1997, mere months after Mel's original phone call, is similar to Google Earth today, in that you can view images of land from the top down. So, let's play this.
Okay, you go to the Terra server,
Yes.
and you go see the pictures where my property is in the Monastash.
All right. Well, why don't you tell us how to do that? In other words, what specific photograph are we looking at? There should be a number or something.
Well, yeah, I don't have that handy, but if you found Ellensburg,
Yes.
and you zoomed out, so
Right.
the picture got smaller,
Right.
you will see where my property is, and it's very easy to see where it is.
And in how would we identify it?
Because it has been expunged.
What do you mean?
Those pictures do not appear on the satellite server, the ones taken in June of 2000.
Well, instead, where your property ought to be, what do we see?
2 white squares.
Okay.
Holy shit.
And I have the picture. I'm going to go ahead and show it to you.
I'm assuming this will go on YouTube as well.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
we'll be placing this on YouTube. And so
Where's Mel's property? It's right there.
clearly this picture's doctored, right? And you might be like, oh, well, Mel's just giving like fake crap out there, right? Like he could have just like somehow 2002 photoshopped it somehow. I don't know. But anyways, Mel Waters did not submit it. An independent listener to Art Bell's radio show went on the Terra server and actually submitted it, like while they were talking. This lends credence to Mel's original story, and that there is something in the area in which someone does not want the general public to see.
Yeah, a hole. A big one.
Even from a great distance, Art's audience crashed the Terra server system during the commercial break.
Everyone's like, I gotta check this out.
But many people saw the image. So Mel talks about how he's heard stories of people traveling up the highway from Yakima at a truck stop who have seen a black beam of light coming from the Manistash Ridge. Art testifies that after an interview, a television crew went out to Mel's old property of Ellensburg to investigate and had discovered signs of military activity in the area, including some blueprints and tire tracks. The military also extended the no-fly zone to cover up his property. So let's go ahead and just play this real quick.
Light,
Well, now, maybe my audience is not aware, but a television crew went up to Ellensburg after we did the last program and researched this. And I'll be doggone, they didn't find the hole, but they did find near the area where you were talking about a lot of military blueprints and all kinds of information that would indicate the military, in fact, had been there or was there.
Oh, they would have probably seen a lot of yellow gear tread marks in the on the ground.
Yep.
I like how he said, I'd be doggoned.
Yeah, it's just like an older generation and how they talk, you know.
Dag nabbit, them and their military presence.
So right now, this story seems like completely out of this world and seems fabricated. However, these 2 points of evidence, again, gives credence to the topic. It's like, okay, well, then why is there a blackout zone on, I want to say Google Maps, but Terra server? And like independent journalists went up there and said, yeah, there's a military presence in this town that doesn't seem normal.
Right. Well, in the last conspiracy theory iceberg when we did, Google Earth black zones was a topic, which is exactly what this is.
Yeah.
It's an area they don't want people to see, and they're like, well, let's just crop this out and just leave this white square. No one's going to notice. It's not going to be a big deal.
So during the show, a UFO author writes in. We'll play it here.
Richard Hoagland called at the top of the hour and said, you know what, Art, you're right. Normal time travel could not explain what he just talked about, but there is one thing that could.
And that is?
A parallel universe. That is to say, a universe in which similar things occurred, but with very different outcomes. And a lot of our best scientific minds now, Mel, are saying that indeed that could very well be the case. There could be a universe in which the Nazis won the war.
And this is like trying to explain like why that dime exists.
Right.
So
It exists in a world that's not ours.
somehow
But it exists somehow.
that hole is transmitting artifacts from a parallel universe. It's kind of trippy when you think about it. And it makes you wonder, like, on the other end, are they receiving the same, you know?
It makes me really want to see someone jump into the hole and see if they come out in the exact
Dude.
same place in another timeline.
Just wait till the end. Jesus. All right. So, one of Mel's trucker friends had relayed to him that he remembered delivering a large quantity of fiber optic cables to a warehouse in Ellensburg. He also stated that everyone at the warehouse were Israeli. Another trucker delivered a number of crated instruments to the same warehouse.
Something fishy.
They came from Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory, which is located just outside of San Francisco, California, and they specialized in high-tech equipment. So, before we transition into more stuff, Britton, would you like to talk about backyard shit?
Hell yeah. Backyard shit is the topic here. Okay. So this one revolves around a family who purchased a home in sunny California and later discovered something massive underneath their new property. The house itself was built a long time ago, so they were like prepared to find like some ancient shit down there, maybe some old relics, whatever. What they actually found was a very well preserved fallout bunker.
That's so cool.
Wouldn't that be amazing?
Oh, yeah.
So it's rumored that an engineer put the bunker there during the Cold War in the 60s when a lot of people were really stressed about the nuclear fallout of the war. The engineer's daughter later spoke about the bunker, saying that it was dug roughly 15 feet underground and would be used to protect their family from radiation. It was packed full of resources and food supplies. But again, like if I bought a house and found a bunker, I'd be like the happiest guy ever. Like that's amazing. That's so much like extra property value.
Yeah, I mean, you wouldn't have to build your own. You never know, a nuclear war might turn its ugly head again.
Right? But I just think it's so cool. Like, that's a selling point. Like, if I was, like, it was
That's
funny.
one of the features.
Right. And it's like, just wait till you go underground 15 feet. You get your own bunker loaded with potatoes from the 60s. It's funny, though. My wife was actually showing me a TikTok the other day about, I guess there's an underground missile silo that they listed on Zillow.
That's so cool.
Like, it's crazy looking. It was nuts. But speaking of which, sorry for like the weird randomness, but it's also my wife's birthday today. So happy birthday. She turns 30.
Nice.
Dirty 30. Happy birthday.
That was a hard year for me, 30.
Was it?
Yeah.
Leaving your 20s behind?
Mm-hmm.
I turned 30 last October. I'm turning 31 in October. I think it's been great so far.
Oldie.
My back hurts a little bit more. And I get stressed about adult things. But
And those kids, they're just out of control.
Those damn kids. Okay, so this one takes us all the way to New Orleans. And this story just goes to prove that bad shit happens when you want to put in a swimming pool. Bad shit happens.
Every time.
So in New Orleans, a man decided that it was high time to put in a nice below-the-ground pool. While digging the foundation, he came across a horrifying scene. A whopping 15 caskets were uncovered. 15!
When you opened them up, they were all screaming.
Oh my God. It was still wriggling around. They were alive. But they dated to over 300 years ago, so that'd be fucking wild.
I opened the caskets and they're empty, but I'm selling some mummy flakes.
Right? But it's just like the Black Hope curse we talked about a few episodes back. Like, it's just not safe to dig a pool.
Yeah.
Like, just don't do it, I guess, right? But it was said that this man's property had been built over the St. Peter Cemetery, which was a notorious graveyard that would stack graves on top of each other. Like, they're just like, man, this is so damn efficient.
Triple-decker graves.
It's like, why does this tombstone have like 14 names on it? Well, they're just stacked.
You got to pay extra for the top bunk.
Yeah, or the bottom bunk. The middle, no one wants to be in because it's like the compression.
No one wants to be in the middle, just like in the human centipede. I always got to be on top.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
Oh, that is such a good point. The middle's just getting...
It's not a good place to be, Britain.
Okay, and now that we're on this tangent, I think the end would be... Oh, no, the middle's bad because you're also...
I've never seen it, man.
Oh,
I'm never going to watch it.
Don't watch it.
So.
Don't waste your time. Anyway, okay, so back to the New Orleans graveyard. When asked, the man who owned the property claimed that he knew that it did have historical value, but just not the historical. He spoke to an archaeologist who suggested that the graveyard had actually been shut down, possibly due to overcrowding. It was later sold off. Yeah, it's overcrowded if you're stacking them like a Jenga tower.
If I were them, I'd just unbury the graves and just dig a deeper hole and just keep going.
That's a deep pool.
Yeah.
I wanted a pool, but I got an ocean.
Oh, God.
Why? Because I found a lot of dead people. Okay, and the last one, in Michigan, a contractor was hired out to dig in his neighbor's yard. Didn't say why. It's just like, hey, do you want to come dig my yard? Sure as shit I do. While using his excavator, he dug up something mysterious, a massive bone, which was later discovered to be a rib bone. The sheer size of it made it very clear that the beast it belonged to was massive. Once the whole skeleton was cleaned up, it reached up to 4 feet and looked extremely prehistoric. A total of 42 bones were uncovered during a period of 4 days, and he believed them to belong to a dinosaur. He wanted to know exactly which animal it belonged to, so he did reach out to experts, and it was later discovered to be that of a mastodon, which dates back to the Ice Age, and is a similar species to a woolly mammoth or an elephant. So he dug up a freaking woolly mammoth in his backyard.
Hell yeah.
So anyway, but I'm curious about this Mel's Hole shit, so let's do it.
Guys, it's about to get crazy. At this point in the show, Art brings up the subject of Native Americans and how they tie into the story. Mel relates that he does not want to give the name of the tribe he's connected to because they are very poor, but they are in fact located in Nevada. A group of them had made contact with Mel via email and were interested in the research that he was doing with his plant work. He wasn't interested in any sort of commercialization of his plant work, but the Native Americans were looking at it from that direction. This was early September of 2001 when they first met up in Nevada. They had cataloged a lot of different plants, and Mel was wondering if they had any knowledge of the plants like the ones that he had near the hole in Washington. After talking about the plants that were near his original hole, they went ahead and brought him to a second hole.
What?
And that's where I ended up at the second hole, is because they took me.
Sounds like he's just saying, like, I'm too old for this shit.
that deep sigh was like just the epitome of I'm done.
Yeah, right.
That's when I found the second hole.
So, what are the odds of him finding a second bottomless pit, right?
So he said who led him to this?
Native Americans that reached out to him via email.
Okay.
Remember, he gave out his email online during that show, and we actually emailed it.
And we didn't get anything because it didn't exist.
Yeah, he's probably dead, which is sad. It was not located on the reservation where they lived, but rather on public land that had been settled by the Basque people. The Basques are a small isolated group of ethnic people who come from a small region between France and Spain. The Basques had been using the land to herd sheep and believed that the second hole had been there as long as their people had been there. This means that the second hole had been there for at least as long ago as the 1800s. The current Basques considered the hole and the location to be like a spiritual point that was pristine in nature, with no roads or power lines anywhere near it. The hole, much like Mel's, was 9 feet wide, but had a metal collar around it instead of the break retaining wall from his. The metal extended down much further than the wall did, to the point that it's all you could see with the naked eye. So Mel's hole, like, it had like a little like metal surrounding, but like a couple of feet down it was just dirt. This one is just metal as far as the eye can see.
Oh man.
The collar also had notches around the rim as if something was to be locked into place, like there was like a lid that could be placed on there and locked.
That's where we're hiding our rockets.
This hole was not natural whatsoever, and it had the same noise-canceling properties as Mel's original hole did. Mel accidentally dropped a tool onto the metal collar, and it made no sound at all. So, like, he didn't drop it in there, he just dropped it on the metal, and it didn't make a sound.
What?
The collar around the hole also produced a field of warmth around it, unlike that produced by fire. So Art asks Mel, like, when you touched it, was it warm? I'm going to play this clip.
Around it. But
Well, when you touch the metal, does it feel metallic? Is it cold as metal would?
Oh.
I had to put that in there. Oh. So
Let me tell you a story.
the Basque people had never done any experiments with the hole and had never lowered anything down into it. Also, similar to the first hole, animals seemed to be afraid of this new hole too. And again, much like the hole on his property, people had stated that they have seen a pitch black beam of light coming from this hole too. Mel and the Basques decided that they would start doing some experimenting on the hole. The first thing they did was lower a bucket of store-bought ice down the hole as far as they could, which ended up being around 1,500 feet. They had kept another pail of the same ice on the surface to use as a control group, so that they would know when to pull up the ice from the hole to compare two samples. So what would you predict here?
It's going to be melted.
Okay.
Or it's, I don't know. It's either going to be exactly the same or just completely just a bucket of water.
All
So they
right.
said for 10 minutes they left it down there?
They didn't specify a time in this podcast. So once they hoisted the ice from the pit, they immediately noticed a difference between it and the half-melted ice on the surface. The ice in the hole had not melted at all.
Ah.
Even more odd is it was no longer cold to the touch and remained in the same shape without melting while in Mel's hands. So let's go ahead and play a clip.
It didn't melt.
So then now they're more like blocks of glass.
Yeah, I would say so. But we said, oh, okay, what we'll do here is we'll take this bucket and we'll stick it on the fire. You know, a little place to cook there. Stick the
bucket with the unmelted ice?
Unmelted ice.
You put on a fire?
We put it on, like, our cooking fire there.
Okay.
We had a little table and cooking area and stuff over there. And so we put it on there, and the ice catches fire.
What?
The cubes catch fire. And I guess maybe...
So
Catches fire.
yeah, it gets weirder. So the ice became a focus of their testing, and one of the things they tried to do was to cook it over an open flame. Instead of melting, though, the ice instead caught fire. The flame was more like a flicker of light that produced heat, and not the usual orange flame that you could naturally see from the fire. Mel stated that the bucket of ice stayed lit for months, and that it was likely that it was still burning even today. He mentions that one of the Basques in the group even took some of it home and put it in his stove to keep his cabin warm during the winter. They continued to experiment with the ice and sending more of it down the hole. They would not always get the same results as the first test, though, and Mel stated that it only worked about a third of the time that they tried it. The further up the ante, one of the Basques decided that he wanted to be lowered into the pit. Mel and the others in the group felt like this was a bad idea, considering what had happened to the ice, so instead, they decided to send a sheep down the hole. So, yeah, they were talking on there, they're like, well, if your body's 80% water, and this does this to ice, like, I don't think we should send people down there.
So let's just send this sheep.
So, the sheep, like every other animal that had been near this hole, or Mel's, was panicked, and it fought as it was brought closer to the hole and prepared to go down it. So let's go ahead and just play this clip. Be ready.
really know and what they sent.
Well, you're right about that. And so if it was terrified...
It was terrified, so the bass got the sheep away from the hole, and again, a lot of what I'm going to say now, I am thoroughly ashamed of,
That's all right. Just give us the raw truth.
He basically stunned the sheep by knocking it between the eyes. Got into the crate, got the cable and line hooked up to it, so, it was all securely attached. And
right.
Just about when we got to the hole, the sheep just started making horrible noises. So he stunned it, but he didn't kill the sheep, okay? He just knocked it out.
Yeah.
So it was live when it went in the box, and then it stirred when it got to the hole.
Yeah.
Anyway, it was just making the worst god-awful noises. We were getting it.
So, I left these last two narrations a little bit long because I don't think words can really express how he says it vocally.
God damn.
So he's talking about blood-curdling screams of protest of the sheep who does not want to go down this hole. But finally, they're just like, all right, let's just put him down the hole. Who cares? He's in the center. Let's go.
Jeez.
So they start slowly bringing the sheep down the hole, and they can still hear it screaming. But eventually, the sounds of the lamb just stop.
So eventually they had Silence of the Lamb.
But
stupid.
So the sound stops, but they could still see it violently shaking around the crate trying to escape because it's still within their eye periphery.
Can you still hear them screaming, Clarice?
So that is when they began to lower the sheep even further, slowly into the pit. About halfway through the cable, they could no longer see the line moving around from the animal struggling. They continued to lower it until it reached its maximum length, which was 1,500 feet. When it reached the bottom of the line, they felt an odd humming sensation from the metal rim of the hole. They left the animal down there for around 30 minutes.
Jeez, those poor sheep.
After the half-hour mark, they began hoisting the crate back up. As they pulled the crate up, they noticed that nothing was moving inside. The crate itself looked undamaged. However, the lamb on the inside of it had died. The Basque, being herders, were well prepared to take care of the dead animals, and one of them took the lamb to a nearby table to butcher it. They used this opportunity to conduct a bit of an autopsy on the animal. Mel noticed that right away, the sheep looked as though it had been cooked on the inside. Also of note, there was an odd colored gel surrounding what looked like a large tumorous growth inside the sheep.
Like straight up radiation down there?
Wait. The tumor appeared to be pulsating, so the Basques cut it out.
Is it pregnant?
And placed it on the table next to the carcass of the sheep. He cut it into the mass of tumor, and from it emerged the sight that shocked Mel and the others. Let's go ahead and play this.
God, I don't know if
You guys ready?
for this.
And we could see that the tumor had some movement to it.
What?
Yes, it had movement to it, and I'm going to describe it like a heart beating. There's not a beating of a heart, just like a pulsing from this tumor.
A pulsing tumor. Oh, my God, Mel.
So we get to the point where we got this tumor out there, and he's working on trying to cut it open. It's like really a tough thing to cut into, but he was finally able to get into it.
Yeah.
And boy, I'm going to tell you here, he opens it up there, and inside this tumor is what it appeared to be a fetal seal. Like
A fetal what?
seal, like a pinniped, a thing that lives in the ocean that
Yes.
balances balls on his nose.
Yes.
It's about 18 inches long. It's got the flippers on it, and it looks like a little seal.
Thoughts?
A seal.
Like, what the fuck is going on here? So they lower the sheep down, pull it up, it's dead. It looks like it's cooked.
And
there's
then
a
there's
tumor.
a seal.
They cut into the tumor, and a seal comes out. It gets weirder.
I'm like, I can't believe it.
It looks just like your basically your little seal, except it had what, and I don't know. I don't want people to freak out, but it had what looked to me like human eyes.
It had fucking human eyes. That's crazy.
I don't even know.
Like a human being.
Yeah.
I mean, you know what like cat eyes look like.
Oh, yeah.
You know what dog eyes look like.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know what seal eyes look like, but I know what human eyes look like.
Sure you do.
And this thing looks like it had human eyes. And the thing was alive, but it was connected to the tumor, like with this umbilical cord.
Holy mackerel, Mel.
And we could see the seal moving his eyes, and I'm calling it a seal, okay, but I have no idea what the heck this thing is, okay? I'm calling it a seal.
So I feel like this is the point in any horror movie where people die, and I would immediately just like casually recede into the forest. Like, yeah, you guys go ahead and handle this weird seal with human eyes. I'm gonna go live.
Yeah. I want no further part in this because this is, you guys got flaming ice cubes. Now you've got a seal that came out of a sheep that's got human eyes. I'm not here for this. I'm not here for it.
But it's opening its eyes, it's closing it, the flippers are moving, it's still connected to its tumor there. And then I noticed that it seemed to be studying us. It seemed to be looking at us. That was the feeling I got. It seemed to be regarding us while we were looking at it. And so that's the feeling I got off of this seal. And then this thing separated from the tumor without our assistance. Because we thought, well, maybe we will cut this thing free.
Right there on the table.
It's right there, and it moved about a little on the table.
Yeah?
So we're all standing back at that point because this thing is loose,
I'd be way back.
And we're watching this seal, and again, that's the only way I could describe it because it looked like a seal to me.
Human eyes.
And then I felt, I just felt I was in the presence of something extraordinary, something beyond extraordinary, something like, I don't know. I'm not a religious man, but it felt in that category of having a religious thing. This was just such a stunning thing to witness.
Well, something that far from our understanding would appear to be magic or religion or whatever you want to call it, I'm sure. Yeah, so what God's name happened to this thing?
Well, we left it there, and it began to, it just kind of looked at us there, and, one of the Basques suggested we kill it, and, just kind of club it, and unfortunately, and,
Is that what they did?
No, basically cooler heads prevailed. That the thing was moving around on a table, and it finally moved to the edge of the table.
Yeah.
It was kind of like struggling, but it got to the edge of the table.
Yeah.
And it looked like it was going to fall off.
Right.
So I go up to it at this point, because I'm just like out of my head with I don't know what I'm in the presence of. And it looked directly at me when I got up to it, and it seemed, it seemed to have a contact with me. And I got this compelling feeling to pick it up and place it on the ground. And I did that. I took this thing and I put it on the ground by a table.
Yeah.
And my hands were slimy from the seal, because it had like this goo that was not only in the cavity, but also inside the tumor. And I'm just calling it a tumor because I have no vocabulary for this.
Right.
And I just moved my hands past my face before I decided to wipe them off on the rag at the table there.
Right.
And it smelled like ozone.
Like
ozone smells like?
Ozone. Of course I do, yes.
That's what it smelled like because I thought it would be some like sort of weird organic-y smell.
Yeah.
Some sort of like disgusting. I just thought it would smell disgusting. It smelled like ozone.
Okay.
So this thing is lying on the ground, and we're all looking at this thing here, and it's like looking at each of us in turn.
In other words, intelligently.
Yes. Yes. We must have been there just absolutely transfixed by this, I'll call it a creature now, for like 2 hours.
What was it doing during those 2 hours? I mean, it
studying each one of us.
That's just creepy to me. Like they were just staring at each other for 2 hours.
2 hours.
Seems like they're like in a weird trance.
I mean, what can you possibly do?
I don't know, man.
First and foremost, the original idea, like let's just lower this sheep into the hole. That alone is heavy. And then this thing, sheep dies. You're like, oh shit, that sucks. You pull it up, find this tumor. And then this seal with human eyes comes out, and it's like staring. Like there's nothing can prepare you for a situation like that.
Yeah, and it almost seems like there's some type of influence going on in Mel's mind. Like I don't think he's in the right state of mind. It's almost like the hole has influence on him, and this creature has influence on him.
You can't make this shit up.
Like he's losing his free will. It's just creepy to me. I don't know.
It wasn't moving around that much?
Just its head. Because we had gathered this cowardly, but a safe distance away from it, but not too safe, So we could easily see it, and they could easily see us. Because at this point here, even the bravest Basque were like, kind of freaked out.
That is wild. That is beyond wild. I don't even know what to say.
So
when we first started this whole descent into Mel's hole, I'm like, okay, it's never-ending hole. I never thought we'd be here.
Call 4 got weird, man.
I never thought we'd be here.
So we'll wrap this story up right now. So Mel, once again feeling compelled, helps the creature to the edge of the metal collar. It gives them one final look and a nod, and leaps back down into the hole.
It's like, gents.
Hey, what the fuck, man? After such an emotional and draining event, they felt deeply touched by it all. They decided to dump the remains of the dead sheep back down the hole before they left. This is when Mel mentions that in August, just before he left Nevada, his doctor had diagnosed him with an advanced terminal esophagus cancer and gave him just 6 months to live. However, after returning from Nevada, the cancer had completely gone from his body. Mel feels as though his encounter with the creature from the hole somehow cured him. A Basque elder before Mel left for home had said that he was not surprised by their story at all, and that he felt that the hole was always of a spiritual nature. He was also not surprised to hear about the creature emerging from it either. That same elder had placed something into Mel's hands before he went to sleep one night and told him to put it away for now. Mel placed it into his pocket without seeing what it was, only to check on it later. It was something that the elder said he had found in a little red envelope years before. It was a 1943 Roosevelt dime. With this, the show ended, leaving both Art and presumably his listeners stunned. It's important to note that apparently these dimes are showing up at his old original hole and this new one as well, suggesting that both of them are somehow connected to the same parallel universe. And that's the end of Call 4. So,
Jesus.
that escalated quickly, right? I'll be honest, I haven't actually listened to Call 4, so when I was doing this research, I was just as shocked as probably you guys are listening right now. I can only imagine what's in Call 5, and then we'll do theories on it. But holy shit, what is going on with these holes?
I did not, literally, I had no idea that it was going to take this far of a left turn. I'm like, because when you were like, yeah, there's 5 calls on this, I was like, it's just going to get to a point where it's like, how much can we talk about a hole where it just keeps its relevance?
Yeah.
Holy balls, was I wrong.
2 holes and different area codes.
Well, I'll do 3 more and then we'll just wrap it up.
All right, let's go.
Back to another crazy money find, and this is actually plays right off the coins we just talked about, and in California no less. In Northern California, a couple was out back with their dog when they found a stash of coins. It wasn't even buried, it was just covered by some shade of a nearby tree. Like, I don't know how long they had this place, but like, oh, we've never been in that corner. There's something over there.
I think it was Roman coins, and they were in California.
So there were roughly 1,400 of these coins, with an estimated total of about $10 million, all in mint condition.
I swear I saw that on CNN like 10 years ago. That's funny.
So these dated back to the 1840s, and experts say that they were actually never put into circulation. It's guessed that the original owner must have hidden them right after production. So as mentioned before, the whole lot is worth about $10 million, but other experts suggest that one coin may be worth up to $1 million by itself.
I'd put it into a vending machine.
I bet you would.
Get a $10 million credit.
That was the most expensive bag of Doritos I've ever eaten in my life. Okay, this one just kind of pissed me off. But this discovery came from 2 young sisters digging for worms in their backyard. After digging for a while, they came across a strange luminescent stone, which caught their eyes immediately. They said it looked otherworldly with a sort of blue tint to it. They originally thought that they had stumbled possibly upon a meteorite or some kind of magical stone. Thinking they had something amazing, they brought the stone to a mineral expert in the local area, to which they could not figure it out. So it's just like the whole coin. It's like, I don't know what you have here. It was sent off to the university for further analysis, and after extensive research and studies, they discovered what it was. You ready for this twist?
Let's hear it.
The Shyamalan twist, if you will.
God damn it.
Yeah, you're going to feel the same way about this as you do about
him.
Shyamalan movies. It was leftover glass.
Oh, yeah?
That's all it was. Such a disappointment. It was just glass. Like, I guess some people would use it for lawn ornaments, but it just, leftover glass.
Great.
So they were digging like, this is great, it's a meteorite. No, it's glass.
I'm on a beach and now I'm getting old. Let's make this a movie.
It's broken glass. Hey, I've heard that movie's pretty good. I still haven't seen it.
I won't watch it.
I know. I don't even bother asking if you've seen an M. Night Shyamalan movie anymore. So this last one, this would be my wife's dream, like 100%. So back in the 70s, in, you guessed it, California, a classic Ferrari was pulled from someone's backyard. A Ferrari. This is extremely odd, of course, because who buries a damn car? Today, we just shoot them off into space. It's way cooler.
If you're like murdered someone in the car and was like, let's just bury it.
But it gets weirder because sitting in the driver's seat of the car was a woman, the original owner of the vehicle. However, it was not some newly found murder scene, as it was her request that this came to be. Apparently, she wanted to be buried next to her late husband and also to be buried inside of her car as a way to stop thieves from taking her most prized possession.
Seems like a waste.
Yeah. Like, instead of like selling it off and having this classic car, she's like, nope, put me and it in the ground, in our backyard. So, I mean, it's pretty cool, but I bet that car just stunk to high hell. She's probably just rotting. Like, you're not going to get that out.
Dude, if it started, I'd take it.
Bet you would.
Yeah.
Dude, she would be melded to that seat. Like, you'd have to peel her off.
You just got to
the
push
seat.
her off, you know?
No, she's stuck.
You can replace upholstery.
She and the seat are one. I imagine you just like, is this legal? Can I eat her?
Mummy flakes, huh? Oh, yeah.
Oh, my God. So, anyway, but I guess the moral of my story is I think what we all need to do, listeners, everybody who's listening to this, let's just get shovels. Let's go out back and let's just dig. Like, look, we could probably get lucky, find millions of coins, or, you know, we don't. It's crazy.
Yeah.
But just go dig.
There's something about digging a hole that's just fulfilling.
Right. Oh, shit. Actually, there is one more. One more. This
All
one's
right, let's
weird.
hear it.
So this one comes from a Reddit user, and he tells us the story of his dad doing some landscaping in the backyard to build a retaining wall. While he was digging, he unearthed a newspaper that was buried. Nothing fancy, right? It's just a newspaper. After looking the newspaper over, he was shocked to see that it had the exact same date on it as the day he dug it up, only 10 years prior.
Spooky.
Like, what are the odds? Seriously.
Synchronicity, man. We're in a simulation.
You pull it up, you're like, July 31st of 2012.
Like, man, promises to bury this newspaper today.
That's insane. Like, it's stupid, the odds of that one. You just can't explain it. Like, you dig that up, that's messing with your head for a long time. I would frame it and put it on my wall. Like, I dug this up. It's like, cool story, bro. Yeah, but it was 10 years ago today.
I'd replace
Cool story,
it with
bro.
a newspaper today.
Yeah. And then 10 years later,
Yeah.
your son goes out and he's like, hey,
Go
look.
dig that up.
But anyway, so that's it. So yeah, let's all go dig and then, write into us, entertheabysspod@gmail.com, and what you find.
And if you like Mel's Hole and can think of any theories about what this shit's about, send it our way.
Right. But again, as we always throw it out to you, our listeners, thank you so much for the constant support. Just watching our show grow has been tremendous. And we always ask for your suggestions on topics and stories. So whatever you want us to cover, entertheabysspod@gmail.com.
And if you like what you heard on YouTube, please like, share, and subscribe, as it really helps us get out there. And as always, thank you for entering the abyss.
Until next time.